Grand Rising Life Force, and welcome to Speak Pro Radio. My name is Stefan Rao, more commonly known as Tank, and this is the Life Force Network. So we are in what might actually be the tail end of a spiritual battle, right? So everybody's been watching the world kind of take shape and form, and watching, a lot of things that we didn't feel like we could do something about. And to the people that are watching with us and, kind of watching the world situation reports, realizing like there's a whole lot more to the world than what we thought, right? A lot more to this world than what we thought. So we're going to spend some time talking about a very small portion of that today that's important to us, but hopefully very important to you as well. And with me is my partner in all ways, Laura. Laura, what's going on?
Hello, Mr. Rao. I'm good. How are you?
I am pretty good, actually. I'm excited. So, where do you want to start today?
Well, first, I just want to have a little bit of a rundown of the Kim reports. So if you can give me your perspective,
Oh my
please.
gosh. So,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll do my best. United Network.Earth, Kimberly Ann Gogan is the ground commander for anybody who's not familiar with this. As far as I know, there's not a whole lot of people actually talking about the incredible things that are happening and being spoken about there, right?
Mm.
And so she's basically been given a blow by blow of the deep state cannibalizing itself, just
Mhm.
turning, and they've been on this long journey
Mhm.
to maintain global domination, right? And in this, there's all these control systems, like your worst nightmares from a sci-fi movie,
Mhm.
that we've discovered are all real. Right? Like all these ways they control us with frequencies and horrible satanic rituals and good aliens and bad aliens and all of these things are a literal part of the world you live in. So this is kind of my question, right? So what does that make us in that process, right? If you think about it,
Yeah.
because as all this is going on, what role have we played as in humanity, let's say, right?
Mhm.
And not to offend anybody who else who we hope is watching, any other beings that hopefully are watching, right? But even them, there
Mm.
was 37 other races enslaved here on this planet with us. And we've also been enslaved in this kind of alternative reality, this
Mm.
holographic reality that we've existed in. Not even holographic, but fake. It's fake. Nothing that we've seen or experienced has really been the reality of what is possible, right? So, anyways, the latest, every week the deep state is aligning with some moon, some like a full moon or some cosmic portal or the return of Memnoch or or the devil or Anti-Source or Marduk or Enlil or Enki or one of these or Artemis, right? And they've been trying to align themselves with these what I would call the previous owners of the earth, right? Or
Mhm.
controllers or whatever you want to call them. And they thought that they had favor with them, right? So this is what we've been watching every single week. They try something else, some new way to connect with some demon entity or some other alien being that's going to show them favoritism. And in return, they're going to destroy everybody. They're going to kill us all off, right?
Wow.
So this is what we've been watching. So in these latest reports that Kim has been talking about, she's been kind of pointing out some things that are going on in the world
Mhm.
that I think are really important because what she's promised or what she said is basically the governments have been given every chance to bring in money. So for people who don't know, the way the global currency or financial system has always worked is there was always money off ledger, and to kind of manage currencies I mean, there's lots of reasons, but you'd pull money on ledger, based on supply and demand. And you'd have the asset redemption system. So you'd take control or register an asset, you'd put it into the system, and then in return, it would put out an allocation number so that you could print currency. And that's kind of how currency is supposed to be made, right? and then the Federal Reserve was like a middle management, between the off ledger, which was known as the unknown country. It also was known as many different trust names, like the Alpha Omega Trust, the Mana Holding World Holding Trust. I believe one of them was the Dragon Family Trust is another one of them,
Mhm.
right? So, and these dragon families kind of ruled the world, and not just dragon families, but also the Order of the Black Sun and various other organizations that are all extensions of this evil empire, right? The kind of the hierarchy of the world that was really anti-human, right? Like they hated us, saw themselves as above us, saw themselves as the Canaanite bloodline. The Cain and Abel started Cain and Abel when
Mhm.
Cain was banished, from Adam's land, and he went out
When
to
Cain vanished, is that what you said?
banished. He was banished,
Vanished.
and he left probably with some of his brothers and sisters, right? Because he went on to create Canaan land, which is also known as the Promised Land, right? And so but he was never to be touched at that time. And allegedly, that's also where the term cannibalism comes from Cain, right? It's
Hmm.
also the Catholic Church has canon law, which is actually Canaanite law, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of these things that people don't realize that are right in front of them.
Mm.
And I think we're in this moment where you're going to start to actually see, and people are going to start to catch on and understand what we've all been a part of, right?
Mhm.
And because we're realizing what we've been a part of, that gives us the power to make something new, right? So one of the things that Kim talked about, though, is that the governments have basically burned every possible bridge, right? Because they want Kim to bring money in, but they don't want to acknowledge her in her position. They don't want to go along with the restoration plan. They want to go along with the absolute world apocalypse plan,
Mhm.
right? So they refuse to change what they're doing, and then they do these ridiculous things. And they reach out to Kim, and they're like, "Hey, could you give us money?" Right? It's like you're my enemy, right? So they have no concept of what this war really entails. To be honest, right? They think they do, but in
Yeah.
reality, it's like they're working against every human being on the planet and think we're all inferior to them, right?
Mhm.
So, so what Kim has been saying is like the governments are likely going to collapse or implode,
Mhm.
or they're going to stop working.
Okay.
So one of the first things to go is FEMA. FEMA has put out, I guess, in some magazine. I want to say Forbes magazine, but I don't know if I don't think that's right. But she said some magazine,
Okay.
um, that FEMA. Now, if you're not familiar with FEMA, FEMA is the emergency services group that operates here in the United States. Okay,
Mhm.
they do absolutely nothing. They do absolutely nothing except steal contracts, block things at the border. But they always pretend, they take a lot of like internet shots, right? So like when there's a natural disaster, like a hurricane or something, they'll send in a bunch of people with T-shirts handing out water, right? And they'll do things like that, and then they take pictures for their website, like FEMA, we're there when you need us, right?
Mm.
But I know this for a fact because I actually was part of procuring 75,000 generators for FEMA, right?
Okay.
And I was working with Kim to do this, and Kim was going to pay them so that we could bring these generators in after Hurricane Michael, right? But
Mhm.
Hurricane Michael was actually designed to take this less uh, prime land on the west coast of Florida, right?
Mhm.
So all these people were left homeless. I mean, it was like 3 years later, and Trump was up talking just to prove what I'm saying. And Trump was up talking about how debris was finally being removed from the areas affected by Hurricane Michael. Now, think about it. The very first thing you do after a hurricane, you have to remove the debris. You have to clear the roadways, the pathways. It's the very first thing you do. So imagine 3 years after a hurricane and debris hadn't even been
Mm.
moved. So what did FEMA really do? How could they even get there to do anything? Because there were still roadways blocked. There were still things that were a problem after 3 years after this, right?
Mm.
But anyways, so I watched. We tried to bring in these generators, and because the money was coming from Kim, FEMA, and I think Jared Kushner was over FEMA at the time. He rejected it because they could not acknowledge that there was a new guardian over the assets of this planet, right? So they do nothing. Is my point. FEMA is just a energy suck, right? So that being said, FEMA now is announced that they are bankrupt, right? They don't have the money to operate or function. If there was an emergency or disaster, they wouldn't be able to contribute in any meaningful way. Now, there's no reason to panic about this because they never really contributed in a meaningful way, right? They never did. But what it appears is that the government is now the first place that will fall apart for the government is human services. Okay, for that's kind of a broad scope term. But services being provided to people that they deem as non-essential. Now I don't know what that is exactly, but FEMA is definitely one of them, right? FEMA is one of them, and it's already announcing it's bankrupt. So it's evidence of what the ground commander has been talking about. It's actual tangible evidence that you can point to and say, look, this is what we told you was coming. This is what she told you was going to happen because they refuse to operate and function in the best interest of humanity. Now, I'm also going to give a little witness on this, right? So we had about 30 people about 4 years ago, 30 people who got the budget. Kim Gogan gave us the actual budget. You hear about this budget all the time in Congress and on the news. They say, we approve the budget. We're approving the budget, right? So we got the budget. It was like 5,000 pages. We divvied the budget up. We said, we're going to dissect this to see what it is. That budget was so absolutely useless, right? They approved all types of technology to basically spy on us from traffic lights to drones to controlling us with FEMA camps. This was all in the budget. They also had in there awards for budgetary laws that were there, right? Like these laws, like okay, for this law, we're going to pay out this much money. We need this money to operate, and they would be laws that were outdated, expired, and no longer in force since like 1999, right? So you're looking at 30 years of a law not even being in force that they would still get a payout from this budget. And the way it used to work is they would submit the budget to the asset redemption system or the unknown country or the Hall of Records. It would get approved, and then the trust or the quantum system would basically issue allocation numbers for them to function, right? And then they would have money. That's how it used to work, right? Now I'm throwing a lot of terms in there, but that's a general idea, right? But this budget keeps going to the Hall of Records, and the person who has to approve it is Kimberly Ann Gogan. And each time she has rejected it, right? So no budget has been approved. So it used to be like a big topic in the news. You hear about the budgets, but they were useless. Now, we reworked the budget. Me and these 30 other people, we reworked the budget to send back and say, all of this has to be taken out, right? It has to be gone. And they never approved that budget, of course, right? So that's kind of the futility of their process. So the government isn't doing anything for you. And I mean, that is just one example of the evidence that you can actually see. I mean, like on the federal government, not saying there aren't police forces and schools that are doing things. They're doing things, but those are usually state run or locally run, funded by local taxes, things like that. Right. So FEMA going down is a really powerful witness to, you're starting to see it in the public eye now. It's not just something on a, off-branded alternative website anymore. You're actually seeing the results of what Gogan had been talking about. So that came up.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty fascinating point to be pointing out at this time, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like, just seeing it come to light. Many people are wanting proof. They're constantly asking for proof and things like that. And I get it. Well, this is one thing, which is great. It just means that we are all, connecting with our Christ consciousness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So
yeah, because like we're all starting to like push that frequency up that they're irrelevant. And
that's her call sign when I bring her on. The dog barks.
Yeah. So now that we're talking about governments, I wanted to show you a video, and I just wanted to know your thoughts. Or do you want to continue saying you want to continue talking about the report? Is there anything
No, no,
else?
no. Go ahead. We'll fit it in as we go.
Because
Throw it out there.
I really feel like this is just like quite powerful. When we show it, it's great to have it ready to go.
I'm being driven crazy by this bullshit. I'm gonna tell you, I feel like if you fall into the poison in the well and drink the water of the two-sided arguments that are going on in politics right now, you're going to hate the other side. No matter what, you're going to hate the other side, because stupid people don't like that you're not voting for Kamala because she's black. You're supposed to be voting for Kamala because you understand the assignment. She's black, you're supposed to vote for her. Smart people can't stand the stupid people. I'm one of those. It's very clear that the smart people are on the conservative side. Why? Because we believe in putting controls in place to limit the absolute astounding stupidity of human beings to be able to destroy themselves. So we want rules in place. Democrats do not want rules in place. They want the freedoms to be able to be irresponsible, to be callous and degenerate and promiscuous and perverted. They want to live in a world where it's okay to permit those things, and that's a perversion of our nature itself. Our nature is to improve, to build, to love and to care for one another. What's happening right now, what's been created by the Democrat side, the liberal side, the so-called liberal side, these liberals, these are demons. The devil said, choose a side. Where am I going to get in the easiest? Damn it, these conservatives, there's too many Christians among them, and they love God, they love the Lord, but these fucking Democrats, ooh, I can get them. Oh, it's easy to take them. All they want to do is blow each other and get high and drunk and change their sexes, cut the wieners off, and do stupid shit. Let's go, we're partying with the Democrats. That's what happened. So these soft-headed nimwits who haven't come to Jesus at all, not in any real way, have got the keys to the power structure. They've got the keys to the nuclear codes. They've got the keys to the White House. And they got the keys to mainstream media. And so that messaging is coming in and tapping you on the fucking forehead all day, every day, all day, every day. The messaging, they're in a war for minds and hearts and controlling souls, and this is a war for souls. This is a war between the devil and God. Between the devil and God. This is only going to go one way, folks. This is only going to go one fucking way, and all of us are going to have to end up getting our shit. Because these sick, perverted, twisted, demonic motherfuckers, they're going to force our hand all the way to the end, and we don't want to live in the world that they live in. We don't want to give up our souls. And so how is it going to end? Think about it. Look, stay ready. Then you won't have to get ready.
I love that guy. Excuse us. I apologize to our audience for the language per se. We try not to cuss like that. But but come on, this stuff makes you want to cuss, right? It makes you want to swear. So now I am neither Republican nor Democrat, nor do I hold any party affiliation whatsoever, nor do I give a good gosh darn about the political anything. I don't think it matters whatsoever. However, what I appreciate someone that it does matter to, right? Who's fully invested and they're watching it and they're frustrated because they're being bombarded with ridiculous, anti human, anti everything kind of values and messaging all the time. And it's like the other side has signed off on this just he's right what he said. At one point he's like they just want to blow each other and be promiscuous and and he said cut off their blank, right? Yeah, it's like yeah, it's this ridiculous idea as if anybody really is like that's what I need in my life to thrive, right? It's a movement not to have humanity thrive, certainly not to have Americans thrive, right? Definitely not for Americans. Matter of fact, it actually has made America a laughing stock to the rest of the world, right? People look at what is going on here. We can't decide what the gender is of our child, right? At 2 years old, and we feel like we need to reassign them because God made a mistake, right? It's this slap in the face of God, right? And this is how you implement communism, by the way, right? Communism is the idea that there is no God. Like that's part of what it means. The government is God, absolute control. But they disguise it by making it so you choose it, right? You choose this really negative thing because you're so bombarded with negative messaging, right? Now, I think that's faded out a lot.
Yeah.
What struck you about what he had to say?
For me, I just
Yeah.
love how he was saying, this is a war against basically good and evil, like divine and anti-source. And I was like, wow, yeah, that is true. And how they want to take our souls. I was like, yes, that's what they were trying to do. And I believe that they weren't able to succeed. They weren't able to succeed in that. I'm seeing a lot of energy just being like, hang on a second, this is really, new, different. However, something's happening here. And there's a lot of people feeling it as well. So, like, and once I heard the way he was talking, I was like, okay, he's saying, what do we do? So I thought, what do we do? We're in America. What do we do in this, in this time? How can we, yeah,
Yeah, so it's funny. He made this great point, right? He's like, if you align with any political party, it's impossible not to hate the other side.
yeah,
So my first recommendation is don't align with any political party. It's
okay.
absolutely go ahead.
Okay, so this is where I have a question for that. Let's just say that, like you're saying right now, don't align yourself with any. Well, who do you choose? Do you just not vote? What are you
Yes.
doing that you just don't vote?
No, or vote for yourself. Um, go in and vote for yourself because in America you can
Okay,
vote for anyone you want. You can vote for. They don't even have to be on the ticket. Go in and vote for yourself. And every day of your life, vote for yourself.
hmm,
Invest your money in yourself.
okay,
Invest your time in yourself. Invest your energy in yourself and things that make you happy. Invest in that. And that means your family, your home, your life. Invest at the best you have, put it into yourself because that's where you'll get the best return on your investment. And there is no stock, there is no government, there's no political party or anything else that will compare to that investment, right? Now, what I was saying is what he was talking about is when you have this alignment with these parties, right?
hmm,
The reality is you will rarely find five people that you have an agreement on everything you're talking about, right? Very rarely.
hmm,
You're like, oh, I agree on this, and I agree on this, and I agree on this. We agree, and these five people, we hang out. You don't even have that in your house with the people you live with, right? You disagree about things. How is it possible to have a political party where we all agree every one of these issues, this is where we stand, and every one of these issues, we disagree with? It's ridiculous. You're a lemming if that's the case because you're not thinking intelligently for yourself. You need to think intelligently about how things apply to you. And do we need laws and structures in this manner to guide us? Or are these things innate in our nature, right?
hmm,
Like, does anyone have to tell you that lying is wrong, for example? No, no one has to tell you that. You know lying is wrong. That's why the first time you told a lie when you were a kid is when you did something wrong. Right? Like you stole a cookie out of the cookie jar, right? You're sitting there with crumbs all over your mouth, and your mom looks at you and says, "Did you take the cookie?" And you're like, "Me? No. How dare you?" No, I did. The first lie
That's
you
never
ever
happened,
told.
right?
No, I'm just saying, like that's
It
how.
still happens now. I'm like, did you take the cookie?
I don't know what you're talking about, but but the point is that we know things are wrong. We know murder is wrong.
Mhm.
We know murder is wrong, right?
Yeah.
We know don't hurt or abuse or rape or kill anyone, but definitely not children, right? Don't
Yeah.
do that. Do we have to have that as a law? I mean, not for us, but to maybe govern the deep state we do, right? Because they think they can do whatever they want. But so I'm not saying that things should be lawless, but laws are laws.
Yeah.
Laws are unbreakable. They just naturally are that way. So what they have is a bunch of rules, and they want to rule you. They want to be your ruler. But in reality, governments draw their power from the governed. So they only have this power because we have given it over to them. So we need to take our power back, right? So even his frustration, I really appreciate what that guy was saying. I really like what he's saying is absolutely true, and he's very frustrated looking at it, and he's angry. And honestly, I'd rather have someone fired up about what's going on and mad than passive, like they don't care, right?
Mm.
So be fired up and excited and passionate about your own life, though.
What I
instead of
liked,
that.
what I liked about him was like, I'm like, I think he's saying a lot of things that many people are thinking. And that's why I was like, okay, let's put this on here because probably other people are feeling like that. And then, we can talk about this of what to do, because it seemed like it was like just, it's a fight between God and anti-source, but there's a crucial part there as well, that it's up to the people as well. So,
Right.
They can do one part, but then we, the people, everyone, all living beings on this planet, have a role to play. There's something that they have to do here. So how do we find each other? Because there are things out there and you have to pay for it. What do we do? Like, what would you do if this was you? Let's just start from the start. Let's just go, okay, this situation's happening. How can we all connect? Did I say that right?
There's a lot in there that you piled in, so I'm kind of recounting in my head. So
Okay.
so what do you mean? First of all, if this was you, well, it is you, right?
Yes, but I'm asking you.
So
Like,
it's not an
I'm
if.
asking
Oh,
you.
well, it is me, and it's
Yes.
you too, and everybody watching, and everybody who watches in
Yes.
the future, right? So it
Yes.
is you. That's so an ambiguous question we're not going to put out there. If it was you, no,
Okay.
it is you. It is
Okay.
you, right? So it's up to you. That's the first. So let's establish from there. It's you. That's one. Number
Okay.
two, in reference to what this gentleman said, which I thought was really powerful, I want to make this clear. The war between the Republicans and the Democrats is not the war between good and evil. They're both evil, right? Generically, not that Republican people that are Republican or people that are Democrats are evil. They're not. But the concept of these things were designed to pit you against each other, pit all of us against each other. So I'm afraid and hate one side, and you're afraid and hate the other side. And now we have this entire belief system based on fear and hatred. So we don't really contact or connect with the energy or the ideas of what makes things better, solutions, like real solutions. Instead, I just know I don't want Joe Biden. I don't want Kamala Harris. I don't want Donald Trump. We just connect with that energy, so we don't end up choosing what we want to make things better because we don't have a choice. We're watching it happen in front of us, right? Now, that's how it feels to people. That's how it feels, right?
Okay.
I give you a choice, like you want syphilis or herpes, right? These are terrible choices, right? These are terrible choices. You don't want either, right? So you have to go back. Well, how do I avoid that? Well, there's ways, right? Like, so the point is, the choice has to come sooner. We have to make choices. And the big thing is, informed people make better decisions, right? So I've said this for a long time. What you're seeing in this censorship kind of cancel culture that's developed,
Mhm.
where you can't talk about vaccines, you can't talk about COVID, you can't talk about, if you say these words, you'll get taken off of YouTube. Now, not only is that illegal, it's ridiculously illegal, right? That type of, what they're doing. It's not hurting or infringing on your freedom of speech so much as it's infringing on everyone's freedom to be informed and to learn. Because by me shutting you up when you're saying things that are true, by me stopping you from talking about clinical studies, real facts, the story behind the story for events, by me stopping you from saying that as the evil empire, I am now preventing you from ever knowing what's really happening, what you can do about it, how you can change it, of you actually being informed. Because when people are informed, they'll make better decisions,
Mhm.
right? Like if you're walking to the edge of a cliff, right? And on one side you use a fire, and the other side is a cliff, and you think at the bottom of the cliff is spikes and nails, like, you don't have the right information, but really it's a lake. You could jump into the lake, right? Or the fire, let's say the fire isn't real. If you have the information, you can make a proper decision, like, which way do I go? But what it feels like is I'm either going to burn to death or I'm going to fall to my death, right? And that's how they pit us. It's either option is awful. That's why choose something different. Choose something that's not in front of you, right? It's not a fill in the blank yes or no, true or false test. You have other options. Now, that's what we have to talk about. How do we create better options, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk about making a better option for the government.
Mhm.
We Kim talked about this. I thought this was a great point. She said it kind of in passing, right? Which a lot of times, if you're listening to the world situation reports, you almost have to listen to things that Kim says that are just kind of like, and this, right? Like, and she just keeps on going. That's where like the gems are in what she's saying. What she talked about was there was a whole army behind an army, right? Backing you up, right? Whatever that means. Now, so you can make better decisions that don't have to do with the government. Now, I'm not telling you to go against the government, but what I am saying is you have the right, you're sovereign to make your own decisions, right?
Well, the way I kind of interpreted that was like there's loopholes. Find the loopholes to everything, because one thing learning about business is there's loopholes to everything. You just got to know which ones they are, and that's how they live their life.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that topic too much, but maybe that's something we can talk about another time. Because I just feel like it's just kind of a bad precedence. I personally don't. I don't want to have to go through loopholes personally.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That was the interpretation I got from it. Was when she said be in the grey. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, but yes, that was the same show I think where she talked about that. No, no, and what you're saying is right. You're 100% right.
Okay.
That was my interpretation as well. I'm just saying, like, to me, it's one of those things. I'm just like, oh, the idea that I have to hide
Mm.
what I'm doing when there's nothing wrong with it, or I have to disguise it behind a veil so I can fit into a system that's broken and trying to hurt me, right? I'd rather change the whole system, right? That's the ultimate goal, which, and I've embraced, like, that's something that's going to take time, right? So I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. It just is one of those things, like, it aggravates. We got into this, right, to change the world, not to, well, let's just keep going along with
Okay.
it and find our way
So,
around it.
well, that's a perfect. Okay, so this is perfect. So, how would you do it? Give me some
Well,
example. Like,
there's about a million things that we could talk about. Where
well, could you give me
you know,
some examples?
well, I would say, for example, gathering people within the community. and essentially agreeing to what you're going to do in your community that is best for you, and making it a priority that everyone in the community, it's not just an option, but everyone has to be informed, and making the effort to do that. Now that will take some time, because you got to gather people together. Then you got to inform them, like, this is what's really going on. And then making laws that you operate by and within this, now what you've created is this subculture society of this community where you operate. You all agree that these are the laws in this community, right? Now, and whatever that means. Now, that could take manifestation, or that could express itself, for example, as a replacement body for child protective services. It is a well-known fact to anybody halfway paying attention that Child Protective Services is it's a legalized child trafficking organization. 90% of the children that go missing are in the custody of Child Protective Services. 89% of the children that are trafficked are in the custody of Child Protective Services. And this includes foster homes. And I've actually spoken to people about this who had foster kids who weren't bad people, who were actually told to just get rid of them. And they got that message directly from Child Protective Services. Get rid of them, right? We're not going to pay you for them anymore. Get rid of them. What on earth does that mean? Right? When you get a message, I have a recording from the Speak Project where we contacted, it was one of our people on our network, contacted Child Protective Services and asked them, and we recorded this, like, are you bound by the Constitution? Which, pretty much everyone's like, every law in the country of the United States is bound by the Constitution. And they said, no, we're not bound by the Constitution. Right? That's a scary idea, right? Because that's supposed to protect your rights, right? Your freedoms, whatever. So, and then I've also, like, if you understand how Child Protective Services works, they incentivize people. This is a grant-based system. This means your tax dollars go to pay for Child Protective Services to fund a grant, and the grant, it only gets renewed each year if the numbers increase by a certain percentage of children taken from homes. Right? So I want let that sink in, what I just said. So a government organization that pays more, so like social workers who go and take kids from homes, right? They're paid more because they take more children. They take them from their homes, right? Now remember, now put that together with the other stat. 89% of the kids that go missing, 89% of the kids get trafficked, or 90% of the kids get trafficked, are in the custody of Child Protective Services. And they're incentivized to take your kids, right? So that is what Child Protective Services does now. So if I was that's still how it operates. And it's still grant funded each year. The grant renews, and that's how they pay for their operations, right? Now, is there people that are protecting kids somewhere in there? I'm sure, but the facts remain the same. The facts remain. That, in my opinion, is the biggest problem that we have, as far as that we can address immediately. Put it that way. So how do you address that?
Yeah, that was my next question, because, like, first times, people hearing this, they're probably going to go get my pitchforks. Let's go.
Now, Max Malone and I have talked about this quite a few times. You and I have talked about this a lot, right? So what you have to do is you have to make the care for children be something that is local and is all-encompassing, meaning everyone, regardless of their age, is responsible to protect the kids. You have to create community organizations that pull together and say, we're all going to protect all of these kids. All of the kids that exist in this community will get these things. They will be fed, they will have a home, they will be safe in their home. Now, that doesn't mean that you're interfering in how people parent, right? Because look, if you were raised in the South, in a black family in the South, you probably had to pull a switch at some point and get spanked hard, right? That's based on my experience with every black friend I have, right, who is from the South. But if you're white and from the North, your parents probably never even spanked you, not once. Is one right and one wrong? No, they're just different, right? They're just different. Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with disciplining a child as long as you're not abusing a child, right? And this is true, in South American families, right? Like every family disciplines their child in different ways, right? And in upstate New York, it was timeout, right? Like so, which if you said that to some families, they'd laugh at you, right? But the point is there's different ways to do things. However, so you don't need to micromanage people like that, but what you do need to do is say, hey, you know what's not okay? Like, you can't sell your kid to somebody who's going to be raping and abusing them. You can't be doing crack at the house with the kids there. Like, you can't be doing these things. And we all have to look for the signs, take responsibility, and then come up with a plan that what happens when we find a kid who is being abused? What do we do as a community and take responsibility as a collective within that community? And that takes a network that has to be created. That takes communication where people are saying, okay, look, I know what's going on here. Do you know what's happening here? We're all taking responsibility. What are we going to do? And then you come together and you say, look, we know this is happening. This event, and you come up with a plan of action to protect that kid. And if that was the standard, you wouldn't have kids getting hurt. Definitely not in the numbers you do now, for sure. Now, I'll prove my point. In neighborhoods where it's known that people carry guns, do you know how often people break into those neighborhoods? Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Because nobody, no criminal is going to a neighborhood where everybody in the neighborhood has guns. They're not going there because they don't want to get accidentally shot by, a soccer mom who's been waiting to pull that trigger on somebody coming into their house, right? So, so whether you like gun laws or not, whether you like guns or not, the fact of the matter is, if they think you have a gun, you're less likely to have your house broken into, right? Now, imagine a community where it's like, look, we protect our kids, right? We protect our kids, and we have our own way of doing it. That we don't reach out to Child Protective Services because we know they're a trafficking organization. So you don't have to involve Child Protective Services. You can talk to your schools and say, we will handle it. If there's a kid here, we will work on it. As a family, as a collective family, we will do that. So that the school doesn't call Child Protective Services, which is going to hurt the child, right? You first address it with the parents. That is the right of the school. You can address it with the parents to help a child, right? And so you need teachers involved. You need parents involved. And you get everybody collectively agreeing, we are going to protect this house. And when you do that, people don't break into that house. Kids don't get hurt in that house. I mean, not unless they do it on their own, right? Like make a mistake. But they're not getting abused. They're not getting trafficked. They're not getting raped. They're not getting killed because we agree in this community this is how we're going to take care of our kids. That makes sense?
It does. Quite heavy. Like, that's a little bit like, oh, I was just asking for an example. We're going to go start with kids now. Great. Okay. Can we have another example, not children? Like, because like, I think that pulls on everyone's heartstrings. And the other thing is, it's like, okay, it's a touchy subject. It's a touchy subject.
I don't, it's funny. I don't think it is. I think it's a
Really?
subject. Well, what I mean by touch, like, I think it's a subject you absolutely have to talk about. What's the one thing we all have in common? We were all a kid.
Yes.
I don't care what your race is, where you're from. We were all a kid. So we can all relate to the awkwardness, the fear, the anxiety of just growing up. Growing up gets scary when you're a kid, right? And imagine if you add into that abuse or other things, right? So these are things, if you want to pull a community together, do it around the kids. Because there's nothing more human than actually caring for your kids. Right? There's nothing more important, right? If you don't care about your kids or even just kids in general, like, you're probably not human, right? There's something in you that's dead, right? Because nobody who's actually a decent human being doesn't have a kid somewhere in their life that they care about. I mean, I've watched grown men, toughest men I know, fall into tears the first time they held their own baby. I'm one of them, right? Like there's something profound about knowing that everything else you've ever done is a distant second to this moment, the responsibility you have now to be a parent, right? And that's an honor and a privilege. And the more we emphasize the value of that, right? That's why it always amazes me when like there's this big push about like they're always pushing women to go to work, and you don't have to take that from a man, as if a man, by honoring his wife as a mother to his children, is diminishing her. I don't think there's anything more powerful than a mother, um, and
I think they're both important and they play different roles. That's how I see it as. I think a man is just as important as a woman, and a woman's just as important as a man. Because at the end of the
yeah, go ahead.
and I think that's what people are getting confused about. I've been seeing a lot of this whole feminine, movement. And to me, I'm like, as a feminine, I'm like, I'm sorry, but we need our men. And we need our men to be real men, especially right now. Men are safety. We all know that. That's just how we feel. And I'm not saying that women don't give that or women aren't stronger, but at the end of the day, a man will always be much more stronger than a woman. And so women may not like what I'm saying, and I'm really sorry, but that's just how I see it. And I think there's a balance, and that's what's healthy.
So I agree. I agree that men, we don't have enough men being men anymore, right? Because they're trying to feminize men and they're trying to masculinize women, right? So women are powerful all by themselves, just as they are. They don't need to be more manly to be powerful, right? And that's kind of what they've done. And men can be sensitive and kind and loving and nurturing just the way they are as men without being feminine, right?
Yep.
Even though those are attributes that you would associate with femininity, because
Yep.
we're all on some level a balance, but there's a nature that is in us that we dominate with. Men will dominate a certain way in them. I'm saying dominate within themselves, and so will women, right? And that happens. And there's anomalies to that too. I mean, it's not always the case, and that's fine. But the nature is what's so important, right? That's such a powerful thing. So the role of being a protector and seeing and I think men should play that role, right? Because we do have a physical advantage, right? And women, they're the ones that all the other things, there's so many other aspects, right? That women are controlling, and they can only play that part as a mother, as a wife, as just being a woman, the best version of themselves, if a man is willing to be a man. So I always think about that. Now, before we get off on that topic, because that's a whole other,
That is.
thing we can go off on for a while. But so we're in this time where, okay, you're talking about, how do we pull together communities and change them?
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's up your alley, to be honest. I was more.
It's up your alley too. I just put you on the spot. That's the fact of it. So, okay. So there's a lot of things we do. The number one thing that we strive to do is, because we think it's so important here at the Life Force Network, is to provide a place where people can connect, right? That's why the whole idea behind the Life Force Network is a movement of like-minded people dedicated to changing the world. And I would almost want to say sometimes dedicated to creating a better world, right?
Yeah, I like that better.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry.
change that up. It's oldie but a goodie. So
continue, Mr. Al. Sorry.
So, so we've built whole networks, social media sites, all types of things, ways to connect, job sites, so that we can do that, right? So that we can pull everybody together.
To be fair, Ground Command has created United Network, which they do have a platform there that you can chat on. The only thing is, it is a platform that it's a subscription base, if I'm not mistaken. So, what we're talking about is how can we create something that is for everyone and that it is, for free until the right things come in place. Just to be clear. Continue,
Yeah.
Mr. Al. Sorry.
And to be honest, I'd rather have it just be the right thing, period, and be the right thing from the beginning. Like it is, doing it the right way. So we've built those things. And I'm sure they'll get better as we go, right? As we
Well,
reemerge. And
I think the whole thing about, this whole experience has, one thing it has taught me, I can say, okay, there's all these amazing things that we did build that we can get up and running, quite quickly because it's there. The only thing is, it's like, okay, well, now that we have this in place, we need the people to now go, okay, I want to run it. I want to take control, not take control, like, I want to assist in this. And, or perhaps we need, so we were having a conversation with a person from, a member, and I actually don't want to say too much because I don't know if I can say it, but we were talking about an idea and that she had, and it was in regards to online, like a virtual online, what's it?
virtual community.
Virtual
Yep.
community. Okay. But it was more based around children, and that's one of her ideas. Now, I'm not going to say too much about it, but, she came to us and she was like, how can we create this? And so we've been doing these things, on these spare times of creating something that will be helpful for others, that they can clone, that they can put in their own language, that they can change, that they can, whatever, put their informations on there. The other thing that, it's one of the things that we have is it's like teachable. So, can you explain that?
Yeah. So one of the things we've worked with, my master's degree is actually in instructional design, and curriculum design, and so I've always been very passionate about teaching. I do believe that this era is going to lend itself to the power of teachers. And teachers have an incredible ability because, well, they have this incredible advantage. They're constantly teaching and repeating the same things in different ways and coming up with new ways to say things that they've been talking about. Now, they also are expert learners, right? They learn generally, and this is generic, but they learn very well.
Mhm.
So the more as we move into things, we need to actually create curriculum and classes. So we're launching that. That's something that we've been building, right? So that it's like a teachable type platform. It's an online platform. And we're looking at what's the scope of learning. It's literally an unlimited learning platform where you can teach about and talk about everything from, first grade math to advanced quantum physics to how to speak telepathically, right? Or how to astro travel, or how to connect and move things with your mind, right? All of these things are topics and abilities that we have innately that we are not fully aware of, right? So at some point you have to have something to introduce these things. And then basic things for kids coming out of high school, which should be on everybody's mind, is it's on my mind because my boys are just out of high school. So is like financial management, right? Like, here, let me teach you how to manage your finances, and like, let me give you this class, right? How to do things like basic things, like how to iron your clothes. To be honest, like, we used to have home and careers in the United States. I don't know if that's a home ec it was called, and you learn how to sew, right? You learn how to iron, you learn how to do basic things, and all of us learned how to do it, right? So those are the types of things that, like, maybe it's so in this unlimited university that we're talking about, this life force university that we're launching, right? We're going to start pulling people in to make their classes, and we'll have standards, and we'll teach them how to build a curriculum, and then we'll allow them to take that and make money from it, right? And actually offer those classes at a reasonable price, and they can make their classes and share those with the world. And we'll have niches, right? So you can actually target certain niches of people, and you have excuse me, have price points to help people, to provide a service.
Mhm. And I think that's what, then the marketplace comes involved. That's when you can, once you've created your course, then that's another place where you can market it to like-minded people that are there. And, I think that's a great idea. That when I hear what she's doing with the marketplace, I'm like, that's fantastic. This is what we need. And I think, there are other stuff we need too. We just need to kind of come together and go, what do we need? And let's create it together as a collective. And I feel like that's really important.
Yeah, and having that, being part of something bigger than yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. This is one of the main reasons why relationships fall apart is when the key, the aspect of being in a relationship where you both feel like you're part of something bigger. It unites you. That makes you stronger. When that goes away, oftentimes couples fall apart, right? That's why a lot of times when people they retire, they start to get sick because their job was their purpose, right? So purpose drives us, right? And I think when you have a common purpose in a relationship with one other person, it's very powerful. Now imagine that when you have a collective where we're all going to rebuild this world.
Mm.
And I know as we talk to people, different people have different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
Better ideas they think are the best. What I want to do is bring those people on to the network.
Yeah.
And coach them to create classes. Or maybe they can coach me because maybe they're better at it, and that's fine too. And we'll create these online courses for everything. It'll be an online university for everything. Anything you can imagine. And instead of it just being some generic thing, it's like, no, you have experts teaching how this works, right? Now, that's the challenge, right? Because there's some people who might teach about history that, we don't always have the accurate history. So that's the part where I get a little, I need some help with that, because what, Kim has been talking about, like she's put out the real history of the world. It's going to have to be pretty extensive, right? But that to me could be a great class. It'd be a great class to know, like, this is what happened. What does this mean, right? You go back to the origins of creation and, 250,000 years ago, the war that basically divided the earth up between Marduk, Enlil, Enki, Artemis, Anti-Source. And who are these people? Like, these are incredible, incredible things that I think everyone benefits from knowing, right? So the history aspect of the university, I feel like would be very big, right? Like, I like now that the archivists are gone, I'm a little like, oh, I guess we don't have access to that. But
well, we do. We're just learning how to remember how to gain access to it.
That could be a class, right? How to gain access to your soul memories.
There you go. Awesome. And
right? So
yeah, your original blueprint. Is it the blueprints of the soul?
Well, I know it's like your soul history, like your soul contracts, your soul history, right? Like we're supposed to be downloading and remembering those things because we're directly connected to source, right?
And if you're really paying attention, like you will start to feel like, oh, that is different. Which brings me to this next video that I want to show you. And I just want to hear your thoughts about it. Now, she is, I think this is really fun because she is a tarot card, thrower. I'm sorry, that's not the right way to say it. But anyways, that's really exciting. So I wanted to show you this video. Now, I've only done the first 3 minutes and we will put the proper, I think it's 8 minutes long. I'll put that onto the Life Force Network chat on Telegram. The channel. But I want to hear your thoughts about this.
Now broken and you are free. God has intervened on your behalf. I'm going to give you what I channeled and then I'll hit the cards. The collective I'm speaking to in this message will resonate with feeling and having a knowing that black magic, dark forces, curses, hexes, just a lot of darkness at play throughout your life. This is your confirmation that you are now free, that is broken, and God has intervened on your behalf. You are divine royalty. You have not been forgotten. It's about time for you to take your spot on the throne that we have prepared for you. There has been an invisible war happening on your planet for eons, the dark versus the light. You see this dynamic play out on the world stage and within your own lives through narcissism, codependence, addiction, and more. Many abuses and tragedies. The dark was hard at work. It felt as though it would never end, and yet it has. You may not have even realized that we have been silently working together this entire time. As you slayed the demons in your life and reclaimed your power, we slayed the invisible demons attacking you and your planet. The war is over and you are safe now. Life will start to change for you. We request that you believe this and begin expecting magic in your life. Expect abundance and love, and expect the absolute best for yourself every single day. The only way the darkness can re-enter is through your doubts, your thoughts, and your beliefs. Be strong. Dust yourself off because your next chapter is about to begin. So this is a beautiful confirmation for whoever this message has found. The war is over. The curse is over. God has intervened. You are now free. And the only thing you really have to do is pay attention to your thoughts and your beliefs and know and expect and believe that magic and the best of the best is happening for you every single day. The dark can only re-enter through, excuse me, I'm seeing like almost like wormholes. Like the dark can only enter through these little wormholes if you allow your thoughts, right? If you allow, it's like allowing it back in. It's like if you allow your thoughts to be like, well, that's not for me. That can't happen for me. I can't have that. I'm so tired, I give up. Like those types of things, those are the wormholes where the darkness can come in and can attack again. So it's so important right now that you get control of your thoughts. And like I'm seeing someone like maybe journaling, the star, you are really coming into that hope, calm, peace. This is like harmony, rejuvenation, a rebirth I'm hearing. And so get control of your thoughts, whether it's doing affirmations every day, gratitude, meditating, mindfulness. Like catch yourself in the moment when your thoughts start to run away with something that is negative, or your belief systems, anything that like takes you out of that alignment and out of the belief of magic and how good things are getting for you. Anything that takes you away from that, catch it in the moment and say, I clear, cancel, delete that program. My new program says, and then fill it with that more empowering belief. Okay. Like really catch yourself. That's going to be key here.
That is so much fun.
It was a tarot reading. Thank you, Leela. So, what do you think?
Actually, so, okay, because we're jumping back and forth here, right? Lots of different things, right?
That's what we do.
And I love that.
We're
I
live.
love that. So the, like, for the record, I think tarot readings, like any other spiritual tool, have a value. They're not something where it's like, okay, the tarot, and it's all about the interpretation though, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think they're really fun. I think they are really fun with somebody who's really intuitively connected, right?
Yeah.
So she's really intuitive, I think. Like
it resonated with me. So I was like, maybe it's going to resonate with others. That's why I'm like, if this message is for you, I thought, okay, let's put this out there. Maybe others need to hear that too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so like the idea that that there's been a battle, an invisible battle going on between good and evil on this planet, and that it's like she's channeling a message from God, right?
Yeah.
And it
like
resonates with me too. It feels like very like, oh, that makes sense to me, right? Like God is saying to you, look, this has been a battle for a long time, and these evil forces suppressing you, enslaving you, trying to hurt you, they're at their kind of core are eliminated. And so now you're a blank slate, right? So that in and of itself, she said rebirth, but in and of itself, wouldn't that be like a rebirth, like a new birth?
Yeah, that's what, and I've been hearing that a little bit too, like about, it's got to do with rebirthing. It's got to do with loving oneself. It's got to do with, your journey, it's now time for, oneself to go within. And it's so cool because like some of the things that Kim was talking about on the situation report kind of felt like she was like, this is what I wanted to get your thoughts about. She kind of said the next 60 days, she's not going to be talking too much, like not being on the phone because that's how they find out a lot of things. What do you think about that? Because I'm like, I saw this today, what she said yesterday, you know, you've got this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, one thing that I learned from Kim Gogan, the only way to keep a plan secret and safe is if you keep it to yourself, right? Completely to yourself, especially when you are observed the way that Kim Gogan is. And I lived by Kim for like 5 months, and while I was there, every place you go, she's being observed. There's surveillance outside of her house. There's a sniper up on the hill. There's that literally we go out and wave to in the morning. That's how much she's watched, right? They so every conversation is every time she picks up a phone, like she'd have to, sneak messages in other ways, even in her own house, right? So how do you keep things, if you're at the end of something, let's say, you're finishing things off, right? The final touches, let's say,
Yeah.
so that we can move forward with the restoration. How do you do that? Well, it makes sense to me that you know, be alone, like that you're going to be less on the phone. You're going to be less talking about your plans, right? Because I've had 100 conversations with Kim where she called me and never spoke to me. And what I mean by that is she would start to go into detail, and this is what's happening, and this is what they're doing, and this is what they're doing now. She goes, and then she'd say to me, she goes, I'm saying this for the benefit of the people listening to your call. That's what she would tell me. And I'd be like, okay. Like, I was just so happy to be able to be part of it and listen, right? And like, so I would hear the whole message, and it would be very detailed, like intelligence and all types of things. And she would say it to let them know because they were listening to everything, right? All the time.
Mm.
And I confirm this because on several occasions, I would get off the phone with Kim. I'd hang up the phone, and someone from the other side would call me like the very next second, right? Yeah, it's crazy. And
Wow.
they would clearly know what I'd been talking about, right? With Kim. So I was like, so it's amazing. So yeah, so I think I hope and trust that all this work. See, like Kim did say, things were settling down,
Mm.
right? Because they're out of options. I also thought it was interesting. We are about, I'm not sure the exact number. It's August 22nd. But I'd say we're close to about 70 days away from the election of the United States. Right. So that's an interesting coincidence that, she's taking this time and she's like, it's settling down. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we're finally, that's kind of what I started the show talking about is this has been a spiritual war.
Yeah.
So what is your feel energetically? Like, what do you feel energetically? Do you feel like, we're in a place where things will start to resolve and fall into place?
I feel like, yes, I feel like it is going to fall into place, but I do also believe that there's a programming, issue as well. Because I still believe that no matter what, as sovereign people, you must also remove that from you. You have to request that, activation, rejuvenation, repair, whatever it is. That's what I believe. Now, this is where it's really exciting because perhaps a lot of people, that are watching this are probably feeling like, I already went there and I was talking about this with people. It's like, well, when you are going to speak to your community, your family, whoever, perhaps before they couldn't hear you, because there was just too much programming there. And now things are starting to be seen actually in front of people's eyes. And they're like, wait, maybe because, someone that I know many years ago, was very upset and at one point said that I was in a cult. And was like, this isn't real. This alien lady is crazy, saying all these things. And I was like, and me, I was just like, okay, cool. It didn't bother me because I was like, I know what I'm doing and I know that I'm following my calling. And you know what? There's a reason for this. If I like it or not, there's a reason. And it's just growing and molding who I am. So to come back 3 years later, this person has now come and said, maybe what you were saying was true. Now there's more to that, but I'll leave it there. And I was just like, holy moly, when I heard this, I thought, wow, maybe people are ready to hear it. But, I'm not saying go out there and say they're eating your babies, but it's like saying you have the power. You as a being, you have the power to take your power back. And you know what? Why don't we just like go on this journey and figure it out? And what I learn, I'll tell you, and so on and so on. You know, we, we were talking about this before. There's a lot of people that are like, well, I already got there. I already did it. I'm out of the matrix or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Oh, great. You're there? Well, why don't you teach your brothers and sisters how to get there? Because if you're there, what's the point of being there by yourself? Don't you want to celebrate it? Don't you want it to be with everyone? And you build it together, like you build an empire together. Like I always said, I love the fact that I'm building an empire with you. When all the things happened, I was like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because you and I were going to build an empire together, and it was going to be, unstoppable, unbreakable. It was going to be full of love. It was going to be full of passion, and, so on and so on and so on. That's one of the things that we just constantly kept working, and we just, found each other, to be honest. So I feel like you'll start to find your people. And maybe before, we couldn't really find each other because we were blocked. They were trying to stop us from finding each other. I remember in 2015, one of the things that they said to me was, it's going to come to, you need to stay, you need to lay low, but it's going to come a time that you're all going to unite. And when I started working for United Network News at the time, I thought, pointless. I thought at the time, I was like, oh, here's the a little key, a little clue that they've given me. I'm like, oh, that's it. Because I feel like throughout my life, they've given me little clues, and I was just always following them. And so they was like, oh, I'm on the right track here. And so as we started doing this, I was like, oh, okay. And at the time, I thought it was the time. But, I was like, the funny thing was, they kept telling me it wasn't. It was going to be 2024. Now,
Oh,
again, their numbers and those things are, again, it's not that it is or isn't. I just believe that there's going to be a shift, and that's what I'm seeing right now. I am seeing that now. It is happening. It is happening in a place that it could be rapid for others. It could be scary. It could be just like, what is this? I don't understand. People are starting to ask questions. People are starting to go, what do we do? And I feel like now it's, we're looking around, and when you're starting to see people that are asking questions, just remember that they just got to the party. It doesn't make them bad. It just makes them like human. And just be kind, gentle on oneself. Like that's just the way I see it as. So I'm like seeing that there is movement happening.
yeah.
And they are, yeah.
I also think what a great point to put that out there that your spiritual guides or whatever you want to call them that you often refer to as your peeps, right?
Well, I don't want to
Which
offend anyone, because
no, but point being that this is something when you're looking for guidance and things, and some people call it your higher self, right?
yeah. Well,
But
yesterday, sorry, go.
yeah, well, and I thought this was a great point. They told you, and this was years ago, that all this would really start to reach a peak of
Yeah.
change, where change would actually be, you'd actually start to see it in 2024.
Yeah.
And 2024 does turn out, it seems like it really is happening, right? Because you have major changes that are taking place right now. And coincidentally, one of my old friends, David Hayden, reached out to me the other day, and he was, he's on a kind of a different trajectory, and he was kind of talking about how excited he was about how important this election was, right? I don't necessarily agree. I don't think it matters, but I appreciate that, like, he's excited and looking at things and examining it, right? And and he's very spiritual as well.
Mm.
So I love to hear that. And that kind of like, hey, I think there's a collective understanding that people are starting to come to subconsciously
Yeah.
of like, hey, there's changes taking place. Things are better, right?
Well,
That anxiety is leaving me,
Well, the thing is, it's that one of the things that I didn't like, I've done a lot of studying in many different areas, but I always would say, I don't want to charge. Now, I've had to learn a lot of, a lot of lessons with that, but at the time, I really didn't want to charge because what I wanted to do was what I would love to do is teach people how to do it themselves. And so as they do it themselves, they don't need anyone else. And now I don't even have to teach it. Before, that's what I thought I had to do. Now I just feel like I just need to encourage you to have the take a chance on yourself and really just connect with yourself, connect with your creator, and really have fun with it, because you just never know what you'll be told. And perhaps you need to call upon your higher self, the one that has it all. Call upon them and show me, how do I need to be there. You need to be asking the questions and listening to the answers. And we've got a video to show. I don't know, do you want to show it now? We can show it later. But I loved it. When I heard this, I was like, yes, I love the way he's saying it. And I understand, some people will not, resonate with this or not. But I just feel like, we kind of need to just understand that people are going to put words in there, and just try to hear with your heart, not your ears. I heard that today. Um, you know, I was having a little, I don't know how to explain it. Something occurred, and my heart was racing a little bit. And I thought, okay, I've got two options. I can panic. What's the worst that can happen right now? So I spoke to myself, and I was like, hey, it's not that bad. It's all going to be okay. And then I heard, just go to bed. Just go to bed and connect. You did this so you could connect with your higher self. Well, here. It was such a beautiful experience that I was like, holy moly, you're like, I'm learning a lot from you. You're quite badass. I'm understanding this. And you kind of like, you're hearing it and you're going, how did I not know this? How did I not see this? And you just start having fun with it. And just know you are protected. Just know that now is a time to really raise our frequency. And that's what I feel like it is that people will now just know what to do. It's just going to come to them so easy. They're just going to have this wisdom. And Ground Command has been saying that. And now I feel like people are starting to see it or feel it and just know, oh, this is what I need to do. Ask questions. Just know I need to go this way. And then you might just turn around the corner and there's this family that needed your help, or just turned to you and went, why are you so happy? And then you turn around, why? Because I speak to Tank and I speak to Laura, and they're like really cool. And it's like the Life Force movement, and maybe you should be part of it. I don't know, something like that.
we need to take that and make that the promo because of this. Yeah, yeah, because of this. Yeah,
I'm just saying. But like, what I'm just like, everything has its time. And I feel like now people, they think that they're dumb, that they're going to get really scared. But if we're going to be honest here, a lot of people on this planet believe in something, right? I think we can say that, yeah? Now, because, yeah.
I think everybody believes. Even in the Bible, it actually says it defines an atheist. It says a fool in their heart says there is no God. Right? Because the idea that there isn't something, and God being a generic term in this case, of just something higher or greater than yourself, right? So everyone knows, we innately are born with that instinctively, that there's something greater than ourselves. We know that.
Yeah.
Now, connecting with that, now this is the way it used to work on this planet. You had those, which I would, Kim would call them the Melchizedek, or she calls them Melchizedek. I think it's the Melchizedek, the Melchizedek tribe. And this is a bloodline. And they just naturally had more source essence, the way their DNA was structured. And you might be a Melchizedek, right? Where it's easier for you to connect directly with God or with source. And then those people had the responsibility to kind of direct people. And we were kind of nomadic, right? From what I understand, right? I'm sure I'm oversimplifying this. So, anybody who's an expert who's appalled at what I'm saying, right? But basically, they would kind of direct people, and that was the job, right? That was the most important thing. Okay, now we're going to go east because there's storms coming, or we're going to go west now because this is where the berries are growing, and we kind of move around the planet this way, right? Guided by and in harmony with God and Earth and together, right? So I do think not that exact version, but that's essential now, right? That we should ask ourselves and look to ourselves first and say, do I have that? That's the first question, right? So in all these different things that we talk about, in all these different, we should all, this is such a big deal. My mom always says this, and I love her. She's just the sweetest person. And she's always about having a relationship with God, right? Now, my mom and I, like, there's lots of little things. I don't mean to be a jerk about things. I'm well versed in the Bible, and so are both my parents, but I just disagree about certain things. And so sometimes I bring my disagreements up, but I've learned in my old age to just be like,
Wise age,
my
wise.
wise age and my wisdom, to just appreciate my mom, because she is about everyone having a relationship with God. And it's
Yes.
really beautiful, right? And it expresses itself in different ways, but she just thinks it's so important. Like, did you understand God, right? And this is what it says in 1 Timothy 3:16. Great is the mystery of righteousness. God is manifest in the flesh, right? And it's the whole idea is God's in you. That's the whole point, right? This is what salvation really is. This is what eternal life really is. This is what the Holy Spirit really is. It's God in you. Now, you might have a different version of that. It might be chi, it might be, mana, it might be life force. There's every religion and every scope and every thing in the world. Everyone recognizes there is something that makes us what we are.
Yeah.
So connecting to that and acknowledging and realizing, okay, this is real, and this is something that we can be connect to and stay connected to, right? And I think that's so important. And there's not a huge difference, if it's done right, between prayer and meditation, right?
There's no
really
difference. No, there's none.
Okay.
So
let's throw it up there. Let's hear this. This is mission 1.
What he has to say.
Well, technically it's a sound. Then settle in for the most important meditation lesson of your life. And before I get into it, I'm not here to offend anybody's religion. Truth is truth. You know how religious texts like the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah claim to be the word of God? What many people fail to realize is that's only half true. Because the words that exist in those religious texts are the translations or decoded messages of a sound frequency. A frequency that you and I can access through meditation. And here's another little fun fact. You know those monks on the mountains meditating to transcendence? Guess what frequency they're trying to attach to? What better place to sit in silence and quieten the world enough to hear the frequency of truth than sitting on top of a mountain? And if you actually pay attention to a lot of these creation stories, you'll notice some messiah, saint, guru, someone climbed up to the top of a mountain and heard some voice of an angel, which is an interpretation of this frequency that exists. And they wrote it down and presented it to the people. Now you know why they say in meditation practice, you need to sit still and quieten the mind. You're trying to listen out to the frequency of truth. You're trying to connect and tap into that signal. And you can only do that when you're able to fully detach from your material senses, detach from the ongoings of the mind, so your thoughts, feelings, and all the sensations you receive, and transcend into that higher frequency. Just imagine lines of waves moving through the cosmos, and you're just moving into higher frequencies until you tap in to the sound or the voice of God, aka the frequency of truth. I'm going to end this video with 3 things. The first is something my mum shared with me when she introduced me to religious texts and spiritual books. She said, in these books, you won't find answers, but you will find clues. The second thing is, I want to encourage you to meditate this way. Seek out that signal of truth. Your body is basically an antenna, and there's a frequency out there, almost like a distress signal or an SOS signal, that you can tap into. Because when you're seeking truth, it becomes easier to quieten the mind and sit in stillness and enter a deep and lengthy meditation practice. And last but not least, the third thing I want to share with you is, if you want to learn meditation, I'm talking going from the ground up, learning what meditation means and moving into those higher states of awareness, check out my new website. I'd appreciate it if you signed up, because I love teaching meditation and I would be honored to be your meditation teacher. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow and interact with this post for more tips to your For You page.
So I just thought to leave that in there just in case if anyone liked him, you can go and follow him. We don't know him, but, I really liked what he had to say. What was your thoughts?
What is it? Meditation by Tal Winder. I think he should have a class in the new Life Force University. Right. And I think that's super valuable. Like understanding how to meditate. I loved what he had to say about it, like to access the frequency of truth. Right. And he mentioned like the monks up on the mountains, right? So these mountains, the reason why they would go up on these mountains, I've heard this, is that that the mountains are resonating at the frequency of God or something like that, right? And coincidentally, a lot of these other races that are here, that coexist with us on this planet, they live in mountains. Like their cities, their bases are within these mountains. Now, I'm a huge fan of actual meditation. Now, my family, who you just met this weekend, right? They, on their land up on Seneca Lake in New York, they have a Buddhist temple. And it was, for a long time, it was like the only Buddhist temple in, I think, upstate New York, right? Or one of the only ones. And when the Dalai Lama was in exile, he actually stayed at this Buddhist temple around their land somewhere. And but I was a kid, I remember I snuck over to the Buddhist temple, because when you're like super Christian, super white Christian in upstate New York, like everything else is some version of Satanism, right? It's kind of like how you're taught. So I remember I snuck over when I was a kid to see the monks meditate, and I remember back then I could have swore I saw them floating, right? Like, that was how my memory planted in my head, right? Big red long robes, right? But that was where I first kind of like looked at meditation as something like, oh yeah, these guys are peaceful. They're not doing anything bad, right?
No.
And then, but you get like, we start to think this way if it's anything but the way we were taught. But that's what prayer is. Prayer is meditation. Prayer done the right way is an intercession between you and God.
Yeah. Or being grateful as well. That's the other thing. People might not like the word meditation or prayer. You might, you're grateful, you're showing gratitude for the things you have. That's the other way that people can see it too. I think
Well, I mean, he talked about accessing truth, right?
Mhm.
So vibrating at the you'll hear this a lot, that God is a frequency, right? Which, based on my current understanding of a frequency, I feel like, wow, am I limiting God? Is that, but I guess everything vibrates at a frequency, right?
Yes.
So everything is a frequency.
Everything's energy. Yeah. And it's just all good. Yeah. So for me, it's like, for me, God is consciousness, right? So I believe anything with a consciousness has consciousness, it has essence, the energy, the essence, the consciousness.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I just had to replay in my head.
no,
You're right,
that's
go ahead.
okay. Okay, so I forgot.
So you were saying that God is consciousness, right? Essence, energy.
Wait.
So divine essence, energy, and consciousness.
Yes. And it runs through, so the way I kind of see it as is that we're a system. I was talking about this the other day. I don't know what you think about this, but this just kind of came past my head in regards to Avatar. Have you seen Avatar? the movie, not the
Wait,
anime,
which one? Oh, not the anime. Okay.
not the
I've
animated
seen.
movie.
I should just say yes. I've seen them all. Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen number one, how they're in, what happens to the brother and how the avatar, he needs to come in and he ends up he ends up falling in love with the chief's daughter and so on and so on. So anyways, when they keep asking him, they're like, Jake, is the avatar safe? Which is his body. And I always go, okay, well, how about if that's our avatar? And when we get disconnected, like when we connect to it, that's us living this life.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. It's like you got to ask these questions. And it's like, okay, well, we are a system. We've been programmed a certain way. They have tried to program us a certain way, but we have consciousness. And so I believe that anything with consciousness is connected to God. It's just how I kind of see it. And I also see that it's always learning from, because it can also be an AI that can automatically constantly be growing and expanding. And that's how we should be too. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. I think I'm going to coin the term OI, right? Rather than
Okay.
artificial intelligence, let's say organic intelligence, right?
Okay.
What is natural?
I think
Right.
that's a better way to explain it.
Now, so if you like, so I used to teach in Sunday school, right?
Mhm.
And so one of the things we do is we use water as an example, right? So water is such a great physical example that we're all familiar with, right? So if you look at the ultimate source of God, the all in all, right?
Mhm.
So everything is made from this kind of ultimate source energy, right?
Mhm.
That's the essence, energy, consciousness, frequency, and matter, right? The ultimate source of all things that exist. So that's where you kind of have like so with the kids, I would use a mist, right? Steam,
Mhm.
because the water's everywhere. I mean, you have water in the air all around you. It's everywhere you look. Everything has water in it, right? But then you have another state of water, or you have another state of God where he's taking on a shape and a form that is tangible that you can relate to, right? That would be like the angelic or the super incorporeal version of God, right?
Mhm.
This kind of shape and form, like an angelic form, which would be like water. Then you have a physical version, right? Where you have ice, right? Ice is solid and physical is solid. Now, these are all three different states of water, right? The same substance, the same molecules, the same structure, they're all the same things. They're just manifesting in different ways. And I believe that's really a super simplistic way to better comprehend how does God exist in me and in everything else, right? And what role does it play in that state, right? Because sometimes water can hydrate you, right? Water will hydrate you. Sometimes
Mhm.
water will drown you. Water can, like, and if you need hydration, you don't want to get ice, right? Because you're not just going to throw a bunch of ice in your mouth, right? Because if you get enough ice and surround yourself with enough ice, it can kill you, right? You can be frozen. And then, so, I mean, just think about that. And if you're really thirsty, like the water in the air isn't going to do it, right? It's not going to satisfy or quench that thirst. So it's an amazing thing how you can use something so simple as water to better understand God, right? Because even like if you take a cup of water from the ocean, well, everything in the ocean is not in that cup, but everything in the cup is definitely in the ocean. So everything you are is God, but you're not all that God is, right? So I love that idea because now, when we kind of return or reconnect with source, we're reconnecting back to that version of ourself, which connects to everything else. That's kind of how I see it. With the same principles you're talking about with consciousness. I think you froze.
Can you hear me?
You're good now. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, it glitched for a little bit, so I wasn't sure if it was you, if it was me. So, yeah, I like, it's a beautiful way to see it that way, you know. So, for what I heard, I was like, oh, that's so pretty. I'm like, yeah, that's right. So,
Yeah. When you liked it, then you froze. I was like, perfect. No, just kidding.
So, Mr. Al, did anything else? Now that we've spoken about tons of things, but is there anything else that you think that you didn't cover in regards to the situation report, or anything else that you want to talk about?
I'm sure there's a million, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, like, we had so many spiritual things on our mind, and sometimes trying to quantify, everything going on. It's so hard. We need everybody's help.
So easy.
Well,
So
it's
easy.
so amazing, is what I was trying to say. It's so it's our tribute to Robert Tennyson Stevens. It's so easy for us. It's so powerful. We only speak into existence that which we want to exist, right? And not that we
Well,
want. Yeah.
we are always, looking for people to join us and help us and let us know what do we need to do, how can we create it. And we want to connect with everyone. We want to know what can we do to make the Life Force community amazing. One thing I love about Life Force is that everyone's welcome. We are Life Force. And that's the one thing that I was like, I was like, no, we are Life Force. And so that's where I'm like, I'll leave you there. And it was lovely talking to you. And thank you everyone for being here. I'll leave it to you.
All right. All right. There you have it, everybody. So thank you so much for being here today. And please continue to support the Life Force Network. Share it with your friends. We are doing everything we can to pull the full bulk of the entire network that we've built over a couple of years, few years now, so that we can use it as a tool to assist in the restoration. And you can use it as a place for you to gather and share your ideas and connect your companies and, find out better ways that we can change the world together. So that's always the goal. We're looking for people. We see people and know that you are those people that are of like mind, dedicated to changing the world. And that's what we're here to do. So everybody, have a great night. Let's go change the world.